The Devourers arrived in Earth's solar system like a plague of living darkness. Their ships didn't follow the laws of physics that governed normal matter. They flickered in and out of visible space, existing simultaneously in multiple dimensions, making them nearly impossible to target with conventional weapons. Fleet Admiral Park Ji-sung watched from the command bridge of humanity's flagship as the enemy fleet took position. The Devourer ships were massive beyond comprehension, each one larger than Earth's moon, their surfaces shifting between states of matter that shouldn't have been able to coexist. "Sir, they're broadcasting something," reported the communications officer. The message that came through wasn't transmitted by radio or any technology humans understood. It arrived directly in the minds of every enhanced human in the fleet, bypassing all known forms of communication. The content was worse than any conventional threat. The Devourers weren't demanding surrender or negotiating terms. Instead, they transmitted pure emotional data showing the fate of other civilizations they had consumed. Entire species reduced to quantum static, their histories erased, their very existence deleted from reality. But instead of the despair the Devourers expected, humanity responded with something the ancient entities had never encountered: rage. "All ships battle positions," Admiral Park commanded. "Show them what happens when you threaten a species that was designed to be angry." Captain Moon Soo-young piloted her fighter through impossible maneuvers as the first engagement began. Her consciousness was linked directly to her ship's systems, allowing her to react to Devourer movements before they fully materialized in normal space. "Target acquired," she reported, locking onto a Devourer scout ship that was phasing between dimensions. "Firing reality anchors." The builder technology worked exactly as designed. Quantum tethers shot from Moon's ship and locked onto the Devourer vessel, forcing it to exist completely in normal space-time. For the first time in millions of years, a Devourer ship became vulnerable to conventional weapons. "Direct hit," came reports from across the human fleet as reality anchors found their targets. Devourer ships, suddenly trapped in normal physics, found themselves facing weapons they couldn't phase away from. But the real battle wasn't being fought with energy weapons or missiles. Dr. Kwon Minho's psychological warfare strategy was the key to humanity's attack plan. "Consciousness projection units begin conversion protocol," Admiral Park ordered. Enhanced human soldiers throughout the fleet activated devices that projected their consciousness directly into the Devourer ships. This was the most dangerous part of the battle, making mental contact with beings that existed partially outside reality while maintaining enough human perspective to survive the encounter. Captain Shin Dong-wook led the first consciousness assault. His mind, enhanced and trained for impossible warfare, reached across space to touch the alien intelligence controlling a Devourer mothership. The contact was like touching a living nightmare. The Devourer's consciousness was vast, cold, and completely without reference points that biological minds could understand. It had existed for eons beyond counting, consuming civilizations across thousands of galaxies, never knowing fear or limitation, but Shin held on. Through their mental connection, he began transmitting something the Devourer had never experienced: the possibility of death. "Target is responding to mortality projection," he reported, his voice strained from the mental effort. "It's working, but the psychological pressure is incredible." Across the battlefield, enhanced humans were making similar connections with Devourer entities. They transmitted not just the concept of death, but the full human experience of mortality: fear, hope, love, loss, and the desperate desire to continue existing. The effect on the Devourers was immediate and catastrophic. Beings that had never known limitation suddenly found themselves trapped in normal space-time, subject to the same physical laws as every other form of life. For creatures that had existed beyond mortality for millions of years, the experience of becoming vulnerable was paralyzing. "Devourer fleet is breaking formation," reported the tactical officer. "They're retreating from consciousness projection areas." But humanity wasn't finished. The enhanced humans had developed tactics that went beyond anything the Devourers could anticipate. They didn't just fight to win. They fought to teach their enemies what it meant to lose. Admiral Park coordinated a maneuver that would have been impossible for normal human forces. The entire fleet moved with perfect synchronization, each ship's actions complementing the others in patterns that created tactical effects spanning multiple dimensions of space-time. "Execute Formation Omega," he ordered. The human ships arranged themselves in a pattern that looked chaotic to outside observation, but created quantum interference fields that prevented the Devourers from escaping back into interdimensional space. They were trapped in normal reality, subject to physical damage, and experiencing mortality for the first time in their existence. Captain Moon found herself in direct combat with a Devourer entity that had partially materialized in her ship's path. Instead of trying to destroy it, she did something that violated every principle of military engagement. She rammed it. Her ship's reality anchors merged with the Devourer's form, creating a feedback loop that forced the entity to experience biological existence from the inside. Through her ship's consciousness interface, Moon shared every human emotion, every memory of struggle and survival, every moment of desperate hope that had driven humanity throughout history. "This is what it means to be alive," she transmitted to the entity as her ship tore through its quantum structure. "This is what you've been trying to destroy." The Devourer entity, experiencing individual consciousness for the first time, made a choice that shocked both species. It chose to live rather than retreat to the safety of interdimensional space. Across the battlefield, similar conversions were taking place. Devourers were choosing mortality over their previous existence, becoming individual beings rather than collective entities that consumed reality. "Sir, multiple Devourer ships are requesting asylum," reported the communications officer, disbelief clear in his voice. "They want to surrender and become mortal beings." Admiral Park looked at the tactical display. The impossible was happening. The ultimate predators of the galaxy were laying down their weapons and asking to join the community of mortal life. But the battle wasn't over. The Devourer command ship, larger than anything else in the fleet, remained unconvinced by humanity's conversion tactics. Its consciousness was too vast, too ancient to be easily changed. "That one's mine," Dr. Kwan announced, preparing for a consciousness projection that would either complete humanity's victory or destroy his mind in the attempt. The connection Kwan made with the Devourer commander was like touching the heart of cosmic entropy itself. This entity had consumed entire galactic civilizations, absorbed the knowledge and experience of countless species, and existed at the center of universal destruction for eons beyond counting. But Kwan brought something to the connection that the Devourer had never encountered: the human concept of redemption. Through their mental link, he showed the entity what it could become instead of what it had been. He transmitted images of consciousness choosing creation over destruction, of beings finding meaning in temporary existence, of civilizations that built rather than consumed. The battle for the Devourer commander's consciousness lasted 17 minutes by ship chronometers. When it ended, the massive entity broadcast a message to its remaining fleet. "We have learned fear. We have learned hope. We choose to die rather than continue to devour. The weapon species has taught us what we destroyed but never understood: the value of temporary existence." The remaining Devourer ships ceased their attacks and began transmitting surrender requests. The entities that had terrorized the galaxy for millions of years were choosing to become mortal rather than continue their existence as cosmic predators. "Status report," Admiral Park requested as the impossible battle concluded. "All Devourer forces have stood down," came the reply. "They're requesting integration into mortal civilization. They want to learn how to live rather than consume." The victory was complete, but it came with a price. Humanity had won by becoming something beyond normal human nature. The enhanced humans who survived the battle were forever changed by their contact with interdimensional consciousness. "We're not quite human anymore," Captain Shin observed as medical teams checked the consciousness projection soldiers for psychological damage. "But we're not quite Devourer either. We're something new." As Earth's fleet returned home, they brought with them former Devourers who were learning what it meant to exist as individual mortal beings. The galaxy's greatest predators had become refugees seeking sanctuary among the species they had once threatened. But the victory celebration was interrupted by new signals from deep space. Other threats were emerging across the galaxy, entities and forces that required different solutions than the ones humanity had developed for fighting the Devourers. Admiral Park looked at the incoming distress calls from civilizations facing extinction from threats they couldn't comprehend. His enhanced consciousness could already see the patterns, understand the challenges. Admiral Baek Sung-ho had commanded naval vessels for 20 years, but the ship he now stood on defied everything he thought he knew about engineering. Built in just 4 days by enhanced humans working around the clock, the vessel incorporated technology that shouldn't have been possible to construct with Earth's resources. Status report, he called to Dr. Song-Hae Rim, who was monitoring the ship's impossible systems. All quantum anchors are operational, she replied, her enhanced, mind-processing data streams that would have overwhelmed normal human operators. Reality stabilizers are at full power, and the consciousness-guided targeting systems are responding to crew mental patterns. The bridge was unlike anything in human naval history. Instead of traditional controls, the enhanced crew interfaced directly with the ship's systems through neural links that the ancient builder technology had made possible. The vessel responded to their thoughts and intentions as much as to physical commands. Master Sergeant Lim Woo-jin was training the final groups of enhanced human soldiers in the ship's lower decks. What he was teaching them went far beyond conventional military tactics. Remember, he told his trainees, you're not fighting an enemy that thinks like biological creatures. The Devourers exist partially outside our reality. Normal combat psychology doesn't apply. The soldiers he was training displayed abilities that disturbed even their instructors. They could coordinate attacks across multiple dimensions of space-time simultaneously. They understood how to fight beings that could phase in and out of existence. Most remarkably, they could maintain tactical effectiveness while experiencing levels of psychological stress that would break normal humans. Demonstrate Formation 7, Lim ordered. 12 soldiers arranged themselves in a pattern that looked random to outside observers. But to enhanced perception, they had created a quantum field that could detect and target entities existing between dimensions. They moved with perfect synchronization, each soldier's actions complementing the others in ways that created tactical effects greater than the sum of their individual abilities. Around the world, humanity was transforming at an unprecedented pace. Traditional governments and military structures were becoming irrelevant, as enhanced humans organized themselves into command hierarchies that operated with hive mind efficiency while preserving individual creativity and initiative. Dr. Oh Kyung-min was leading teams that worked with supernatural coordination to build weapon systems based on builder technology. The devices they created violated known physics, but the enhanced humans understood instinctively how to construct and operate them. The reality anchors are ready, he reported to Admiral Beck. They'll prevent the Devourers from phasing out of normal spacetime. Once they're locked in our dimension, conventional weapons can damage them. But the real breakthrough had come from understanding that the most effective weapons against the Devourers weren't technological, they were psychological. The enhanced humans had developed tactics that used human consciousness itself as a weapon. Captain Moon Soo-young was piloting test flights of the new spacecraft designs. Her enhanced reflexes and expanded awareness allowed her to navigate using the ship's consciousness interface systems, which treated the pilot's mind as part of the targeting computer. The interface is incredible, she reported during her latest flight. I'm not just controlling the ship, I'm becoming part of it. I can feel enemy positions before the sensors detect them. The ships being constructed represented a complete revolution in human technology. They didn't just carry weapons, they were weapons. Each vessel was designed to use its crew's enhanced consciousness as both a power source and a guidance system. As the human fleet took shape, long-range sensors provided increasingly detailed information about the approaching Devourer forces. The enemy ships were massive, their design suggesting technology that existed across multiple dimensions simultaneously. Analysis complete, reported Dr. Kwon Min-ho, who had become the lead tactical coordinator for humanity's defense. The Devourers have absorbed the tactical knowledge of over 1,000 species they've destroyed. They know how to counter every conventional military strategy that's ever been developed. General Yoon studied the tactical projections. What's our advantage? We're not conventional, Quan replied. Every strategy we've developed is based on human psychology, creativity, desperation, and the willingness to attempt tactics so dangerous they border on suicide. They've never faced anything like us. The enhanced humans had indeed developed strategies that were mathematically inferior by traditional analysis, but psychologically devastating in practice. They planned to retreat when logic demanded advance, surrender when wisdom called for fighting, and attack when sanity suggested retreat. Explain the core strategy, Admiral Beck requested. Quan activated a tactical display that showed the planned battle formations. We're going to do something no other species has ever attempted. Instead of trying to destroy the devourers, we're going to convert them. The room fell silent. Converting beings that existed partially outside reality seemed impossible, but the enhanced humans had found a way. Using quantum consciousness technology based on builder records, we can force the devourers to experience biological existence. Quan continued. We'll make them mortal. For entities that have existed beyond death for eons, the possibility of dying will be a completely new experience. The plan was audacious beyond belief. Humanity would use their own consciousness as a weapon, projecting the experience of mortality onto beings that had never known fear of death. Captain Shin's Special Forces units had been practicing the most dangerous part of the strategy. They would have to make direct contact with devourer entities and maintain conscious connection long enough to complete the conversion process. The psychological requirements are extreme, he reported. The soldiers have to remain mentally stable while experiencing the thought patterns of beings from outside normal reality. We've lost 3 volunteers to complete psychological breakdown during practice sessions, but the enhanced humans who survived the training demonstrated abilities that were almost supernatural. They could think like the devourers while remaining fundamentally human. They became living bridges between 2 completely different forms of existence. As the final preparations continued, the enhanced humans began displaying new capabilities that hadn't been predicted. They were developing group consciousness abilities that allowed perfect coordination across vast distances. Individual soldiers could share sensory information and tactical awareness instantaneously. We're becoming something new, observed Dr. Eugen during her latest analysis of the enhanced human psychology. Not just enhanced humans, but a completely new form of consciousness that combines individual creativity with collective coordination. The transformation was accelerating as the devourer fleet approached. With each passing hour, humanity became more suited for the impossible battle they were about to fight. Admiral Beck stood on the bridge of his flagship as the human fleet assembled in Earth orbit. 57 ships had been constructed in less than a week, each one incorporating technology that would have seemed like magic just days before. The crews operated with precision that surpassed computer systems while maintaining the unpredictability that made human tactics so effective. Long-range sensors show enemy fleet will arrive in 18 hours, reported the navigation officer. Beck looked at the tactical displays showing the approaching devourer forces. The enemy ships were enormous, their energy signatures suggesting power levels that could destroy planets. But humanity had advantages that the devourers couldn't possibly anticipate. Send a message to all ships, he ordered. Remind them what we're fighting for. The message went out across the fleet. We're not just defending Earth, we're defending the right of consciousness to exist in the universe. The devourers erase entire civilizations from reality. Today we teach them that some things refuse to be erased. As the human fleet prepared for battle, they carried with them knowledge that they were possibly the most dangerous force the galaxy had ever seen. They were designed to be weapons, programmed to be warriors, and evolved to be survivors. But they were also still human enough to fight for something greater than themselves. The final preparations were complete. Earth's ultimate weapon was ready for war. Professor Nam Jiwoo had spent her career studying ancient civilizations, but she had never expected to discover that humanity itself was ancient beyond imagination. The enhanced humans had been working for 18 hours straight, translating Inscriptions from sites around the world, and the story they were uncovering was impossible to believe. "Read it again," General Yoon requested, though he clearly didn't want to hear the translation a second time. Ji-woo looked at the symbols carved into stone that had been hidden beneath Stonehenge. The enhanced humans could read them as easily, as if they were written in Korean, and the message was clear. "We are the builders," she read aloud. "We who shaped stars and taught worlds to think. We who faced the hunger that devours and learned that conventional war cannot defeat that which exists between realities." Dr. Oh Kyung-min was studying similar inscriptions from 12 other ancient sites. His enhanced mind could process the complex mathematics and physics described in the carvings, and what he found made him question everything humans thought they knew about themselves. The builders were a galactic civilization that existed millions of years ago, he explained to the gathered team. They fought a war against entities called the Devourers, beings that don't just destroy planets, but erase them from existence itself. Captain Shin Dong-wook, now leading the first enhanced human military unit, studied tactical displays that showed the scope of the ancient war. His new abilities allowed him to understand battle strategies that spanned entire galaxies and lasted for thousands of years. "The builders lost," he said simply. "Every conventional weapon they tried failed because the Devourers exist partially outside normal space and time. You can't fight something that can step out of reality whenever it wants." The inscriptions told the story of a civilization's desperate final strategy. Unable to defeat the Devourers through technology or superior numbers, the builders decided to create the ultimate weapon, a species that could think like their enemies. "That's where we come in," Dr. Kang Yoo-jin said, her voice tight with tension. "Humanity wasn't evolved on Earth. We were designed by the builders and placed here as their final weapon." The implications were staggering. Every aspect of human nature that philosophers and scientists had struggled to explain, humanity's capacity for violence, their ability to dehumanize enemies, their tendency to become more effective when desperate, suddenly made perfect sense. Professor Ji-woo continued reading from the ancient records. The weapon must not know what it is, for self-awareness would limit its potential. It must develop naturally, facing challenges that will teach it to adapt, survive, and ultimately become what is needed when the time comes. Commander Choi Byung-ho looked around the room at the enhanced humans. They had been working with inhuman efficiency, their movements coordinated with outspoken communication, their decision-making processes operating at speeds that surpassed computer systems. "So we're not human," he said quietly. "We're human," Oh replied. "But we're also something else. We're what humans become when they remember what they were created to be." The ancient records revealed more disturbing details. The builders had seeded hundreds of worlds with early human populations, then systematically erased all evidence of their involvement. If the Devourers ever returned, each human colony would develop independently, creating variations on the same basic weapon design. "Why Earth specifically?" General Yoon asked. Ji-woo found the answer in inscriptions from the hidden chamber beneath the Giza pyramids. Earth was designated as the final fallback position. If the Devourers managed to destroy all other human colonies, this world would be their last target. By then, humanity would be desperate enough to unlock their full potential. The tactical analysis was chilling in its precision. The builders had designed humans to become more dangerous as they became more threatened. Every war in human history, every act of violence, every instance of humans pushing beyond normal limits had been preparation for this moment. Captain Shin's enhanced unit had been running combat simulations for 6 hours. Their performance was so superior to normal human soldiers that the results had been classified immediately. They didn't just fight better, they fought in ways that made their own commanders uncomfortable. "Show them," General Yoon ordered. The simulation played on the main screen. 12 enhanced humans faced a scenario designed to be impossible. Overwhelming enemy forces with superior technology and tactical position. Normal military doctrine would call for retreat or surrender. Instead, the enhanced humans did something that defied logical analysis. They used tactics so unpredictable and aggressive that the computer simulation couldn't calculate effective counter-strategies. They turned their weaknesses into advantages, used their desperation as fuel for creativity, and demonstrated a willingness to sacrifice everything for victory that was both inspiring and terrifying. "They're not following human military doctrine," one of the analysts observed. "That's because it's not human military doctrine," Shin replied. "It's something else. Something designed specifically for fighting enemies that normal tactics can't touch." Dr. O had been analyzing the physics described in the ancient records. The builder's final message contained technical specifications for technologies that humanity was just beginning to understand. "The Devourers exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously," he explained. "They can phase in and out of our reality at will, making conventional weapons useless. But the records show that there are ways to force them into normal space-time, where they can be damaged. The technology required was beyond current human capabilities, but the enhanced humans were already beginning to understand how it might be built. Their minds could grasp concepts that would have taken normal scientists decades to comprehend. As if triggered by their growing understanding, ancient machinery hidden beneath archaeological sites around the world began to activate. Technology that had been dormant for millions of years started responding to the enhanced humans' presence. "It's not just knowledge they left us," Dr. Song Hyarim reported from the excavation beneath Machu Picchu. "There are actual devices here, weapons, sensors, manufacturing equipment. Everything we would need to build a defense against entities that exist between realities." The enhanced humans worked with supernatural coordination to understand and activate the ancient technology. Within hours, they were producing devices that violated known physics, reality anchors that could force interdimensional beings into normal space, quantum disruptors that could damage entities existing between dimensions, and most remarkably, weapons that used human consciousness itself as a targeting system. But the most disturbing discovery came from the psychological analysis that Eugene had been conducting on the enhanced humans. Their thought patterns were changing in ways that matched descriptions of the Devourers found in the ancient records. "We're becoming like them," she reported quietly. "The enhanced humans are developing the ability to think in ways that aren't entirely bound by normal human psychology. They can consider options and strategies that would be emotionally impossible for normal people." The room fell silent as everyone processed this information. They were becoming the weapon the builders had designed, but that meant becoming something that might be as dangerous as the enemy they were meant to fight. Long-range sensors chose that moment to provide their most detailed reading yet of the approaching threat. The Devourers weren't just coming to destroy Earth, they were coming because they recognized what humanity was becoming. "They know," O said, studying the sensor data. "They've been searching for the builder's ultimate weapon for millions of years. Now they've found us." The final piece of the ancient message became clear as Jiwoo translated the last section of inscriptions. The builder's final words were both a warning and a promise. "If you are reading this, then the time of testing has come. You will face the hunger that devours, and you will become what is necessary to defeat it. But remember, the line between savior and monster is thin. Do not lose what makes you worth saving." As the enhanced humans prepared for the greatest battle in galactic history, they carried with them the knowledge that they were designed to be humanity's salvation. But they also knew that in saving humanity, they might have to stop being human themselves. Dr. Han Min-soo had never seen anything like it in his 30 years as an evolutionary biologist. The emergency call had brought him to Seoul National Hospital at dawn, and what he found there challenged everything he knew about human genetics. "Show me the blood work again," he said to the head nurse. The woman, looking exhausted, handed him a tablet full of test results. "Doctor, we've had over 3,000 people come in since 4 this morning. They're all showing the same changes." Min-soo studied the genetic analysis and shook his head. "This isn't a mutation. Mutations are random. This is precise, coordinated activation of dormant DNA sequences." In room after room, he found people who had been normal 24 hours ago but were now something else. Their muscle density had increased by 40%. Their brain activity showed patterns that suggested enhanced cognitive processing. Most remarkably, they all seemed to know things they shouldn't know Captain Park Yunwoo, was in room 314. He had been one of the first to arrive at the hospital after the changes began. When Min-soo entered the room, Yunwoo was sitting up in bed staring at his hands. "Doctor, I can calculate trajectories in my head that would challenge our best computers," Yunwoo said without looking up. "Yesterday I couldn't balance my checkbook without a calculator." Min-soo sat down beside the bed. "Tell me what else you're experiencing." "I know how to fight enemies I've never seen. I understand tactics for battles that don't exist. And the strangest part is it all feels familiar, like I'm remembering something I learned long ago." This was the same story Min-soo had heard from hundreds of people. Enhanced physical abilities, expanded mental capacity, and knowledge that seemed to come from nowhere. The changes weren't random across the population either. Military personnel, engineers, scientists, and people with high-stress jobs were showing the most dramatic transformations. His phone buzzed with a message from Dr. Kang Yoo-jin at the Defense Corps. She needed him at the research center immediately. When Min-soo arrived, he found Yoo-jin working with teams of enhanced humans who were analyzing data at impossible speeds. The room buzzed with activity that seemed almost choreographed. "Min-soo, thank God you're here," Yoo-jin said, not looking up from her screens. "We figured out what's happening." She led him to a display showing genetic analysis from around the and the alien signal didn't cause mutations. It activated pre-existing genetic programs that were already in human DNA. "That's impossible," Min-soo replied. "I've been studying human genetics for decades. There's nothing in our DNA that could—" "Look at this," Yoo-jin interrupted, pointing to a complex genetic map. These sequences were buried so deep in supposedly junk DNA that we never noticed them. But they're not junk, they're instructions. Min-soo studied the patterns. The genetic code was unlike anything in known biology. It was too perfect, too purposeful to have evolved naturally. "Instructions for what?" he asked. "For turning humans into weapons." The words hung in the air like a physical weight. Min-soo looked around the room at the enhanced humans working with superhuman efficiency. They moved with precision, communicated, with brief glances, and solved problems faster than entire teams could have managed before. "We need to run more tests," he said. Over the next 6 hours, Min-soo worked with Yoo-jin and the enhanced humans to understand what was happening to humanity. The results were both amazing and terrifying. The genetic activation was creating 3 distinct types of enhancement. Physical enhancement gave people strength, speed, and endurance far beyond normal human limits. Mental enhancement expanded their ability to process information and solve complex problems. Most disturbing was the tactical enhancement, which filled their minds with knowledge of warfare strategies that no human had ever developed. General Yoon Jae-sung arrived that evening with reports from military bases around the world. He was a practical man who dealt with facts, not theories, but the facts he brought were almost impossible to believe. "Every military installation on Earth is reporting the same thing," he said. "Enhanced personnel are demonstrating combat effectiveness that exceeds anything we've ever seen. They're not just better soldiers, they're thinking like a completely different species." He showed them video footage from training exercises. Enhanced soldiers moved through combat scenarios with fluid coordination that looked more like a dance than a battle. They anticipated enemy movements before those movements were made and used tactics that were mathematically superior to anything in human military doctrine. "Where are these tactics coming from?" Min-soo asked. "That's what we need to find out," Yoo-jin replied. "Because they're not human tactics." The breakthrough came when one of the enhanced researchers, Dr. Oh Kyung-min, made a connection that changed everything. He had been studying the quantum signatures from the alien signal when he noticed something in the data. "The signal didn't just activate our genetic programs," he announced to the room. "It synchronized them with quantum information that's been stored at ancient sites around the world." On the main display, he showed energy readings from archaeological sites across 6 continents. Every location was resonating with the same frequency as the alien distress signal. "What kind of information?" General Yoon asked. "Historical records, technical specifications, and tactical knowledge," Oh replied. "It's like someone left us an instruction manual and a weapon cache," all encoded in quantum frequencies that our enhanced brains can now access. The implications were staggering. Humanity wasn't just evolving, they were remembering knowledge that had been placed in their genetic code and stored at specific locations on Earth, long before recorded history. That night, Minsu couldn't sleep. He walked through the research center, observing the enhanced humans as they worked. They moved with purpose and coordination that seemed almost supernatural. Teams of people who had never met before worked together as if they had trained for years. But there was something else. In their eyes, he saw a coldness that hadn't been there before. They were becoming more efficient, more logical, and more willing to consider options that normal humans would find disturbing. Captain Park Yun-woo approached him in the hallway. The changes in the man were remarkable. His posture was different, his movements more precise, and when he spoke, his words carried an authority that hadn't been there before. "Doctor, we need to talk," Yun-woo said. "We're starting to understand what we're becoming, and it's not entirely human." Minsu felt a chill. "What do you mean?" "The tactical knowledge in our heads. It's designed for fighting enemies that think in ways humans never could. We're developing strategies for battles against beings that exist partially outside normal reality. The question is, why would anyone design us to fight such things unless they knew we would need to?" Before Minsu could answer, alarms began sounding throughout the building. Yujin's voice came over the intercom system. "All personnel to the main lab immediately. We're receiving new data from deep space monitors." In the lab, the screens showed long-range sensor readings from the outer edge of the solar system. Something was moving toward Earth from the direction indicated in the alien distress signal. "How long until they arrive?" General Yoon asked. Yujin calculated quickly. 72 hours. The enhanced humans in the room began moving with sudden purpose. Without discussion or orders, they started organizing themselves into groups based on their abilities. It was as if they had been waiting for this moment their entire lives. Minsu watched in fascination and growing fear as humanity transformed before his eyes. They were becoming exactly what they needed to be to survive the coming threat. But, in doing so, they were also becoming something that might be more dangerous than the enemy they were preparing to fight. The genetic activation was complete. Earth's deadliest weapon had awakened and was preparing for war. Dr. Kim Tae-ho rubbed his tired eyes and looked at the coffee cup on his desk. It was his fourth cup of the night, and the liquid inside had gone cold hours ago. The Seoul Space Communications Center was quiet at 3 in the morning. Only the ID, soft hum of computers and the occasional beep from monitoring equipment broke the silence. Tae-ho had been working at the center for 12 years. Every night, he watched the screens that showed signals from deep space. Most of the time, nothing happened. The universe was a very quiet place, at least from Earth's point of view. Radio waves from distant stars, cosmic background radiation, and the occasional satellite signal were all they usually received. Tonight felt different, though he couldn't explain why. Captain Park Yun-woo sat at the security desk across the room. He was supposed to be there in case they ever received something important from space. In 12 years, the most exciting thing that had happened was a false alarm from a broken weather satellite. "Another quiet night," Yun-woo said, looking up from his tablet. Tae-ho nodded and turned back to his screens. The large display showed radio signals from different parts of the galaxy. Green lines moved across the black background like a heartbeat monitor. Everything looked normal. At exactly 3:47 a.m., every screen in the building went white. The sound that followed was unlike anything Tae-ho had ever heard. It wasn't loud, but it seemed to come from everywhere at once. The computers didn't just receive the signal. They seemed to be singing with it. "What the hell?" Yun-woo jumped to his feet. Dr. Lee So-min ran into the room from her lab down the hall. Her face was pale with excitement and fear. "Tae-ho, are you seeing this?" "I'm seeing it, but I don't understand it," he replied, staring at the screens. The white light was starting to form patterns. Numbers, shapes, and symbols were appearing, faster than he could follow. "It's not coming through our normal receivers," So-min said, checking her tablet. This signal is arriving through quantum channels we didn't even know existed. The patterns on the screen suddenly stopped changing. For a moment, everything was quiet again. Then new images began to appear. They looked like star maps, but with markings that showed movement and time. Tae-ho felt his heart racing. So-min, how far away is this signal coming from? She checked her equipment and looked confused. That's impossible. According to this, it's coming from 847 light-years away, but it's arriving in real time. That's not how physics works. Yunwoo moved closer to the screens. His military training had taught him to recognize tactical information, and what he was seeing made his blood run cold. These aren't just star maps. These are battle plans. The signal continued for 23 minutes. During that time, every space monitoring station on Earth received the same transmission. The images showed solar systems being destroyed by something that moved between stars. Ships that looked nothing like human technology were running from an enemy that never appeared, clearly in the pictures. When the signal finally ended, a new set of symbols appeared. Tae-ho had studied many languages in his career as a xenolinguist, but these symbols seemed familiar in a way that made no sense. Without thinking, he began to translate. They call themselves the Devourers, he read aloud, his voice shaking. We have 14 rotations before they arrive. Warn others. Fight if you can. We tried running. It doesn't work. The room fell silent. So-min sat down heavily in her chair. 14 rotations could mean 14 days, or 14 years, or 14 hours. Tae-ho finished. He pointed at the star map still glowing on the screen. Look at the trajectory. They're moving through this part of the galaxy systematically. If the pattern holds, Earth is next. Yunwoo was already on his phone, calling Commander Choi Byung-ho at the Unified Defense Corps headquarters. Sir, we need you here immediately. We've received what appears to be an alien distress signal, and it's not good news. While they waited for the commander to arrive, Tae-ho studied the signal more carefully. The mathematics were unlike anything in human knowledge, but somehow he could understand them. The biological signatures showed species that had evolved, on worlds completely different from Earth, yet their desperation was universal. So-min, there's something else, he said quietly. This signal, it's not just a warning, it's doing something to our equipment. She looked at her readings again. You're right. It's like the signal is teaching our computers how to understand it. That should be impossible. Commander Choi arrived 30 minutes later with a team of military analysts. He was a serious man who had spent his career preparing for threats, to Earth but never from space. Show me everything, he ordered. As they replayed the signal, something strange happened. The images on the screen became clearer. Details that had been fuzzy before now made perfect sense. It was as if the signal was adapting to human understanding. The Devourers, Choi said after seeing the translation. What exactly are they? Tae-ho pointed to the clearest images from the signal. From what I can tell, they don't just destroy planets. They consume them completely, not just the physical matter, but the information that makes them exist. It's like they erase civilizations from reality itself. One of Choi's analysts, a young woman named Dr. Kang Yoo-jin, was studying readings from around the globe. Commander, we're getting reports from every major city. Hospitals are seeing a strange phenomenon. Millions of people are experiencing changes in their brain activity, all at the same time. What kind of changes? Yunwoo asked. Enhanced cognitive function, improved physical reflexes, and most strangely, new knowledge that they shouldn't possess. It started exactly when the signal arrived. Tae-ho felt a chill run down his spine. He had been feeling different since the signal too. His understanding of the alien mathematics was becoming clearer by the minute, and he was starting to remember things he had never learned. There's something else, So-min said, looking at her latest readings. The signal didn't just come from space. It activated something that was already here on Earth, something that's been waiting. Before anyone could ask what she meant, alarms began blaring throughout the building. Emergency broadcasts were coming from monitoring stations worldwide. The message was the same everywhere. Ancient structures buried beneath famous landmarks were starting to emit the same quantum frequency as the alien distress signal. Tae-ho looked at the screen showing real-time data from around the world. Stonehenge, the pyramids of Giza, Machu Picchu, and dozens of other sites were glowing with energy that shouldn't exist. "Commander," he said slowly, "I don't think this distress signal was meant for humanity. I think it was meant to wake something up that's been sleeping inside us." As if responding to his words, Tae-ho felt his mind expanding. Knowledge that wasn't his own began flowing through his thoughts. He could suddenly understand technologies that humans had never invented, and battle strategies for fighting enemies that didn't exist on Earth. Looking around the room, he saw the same thing happening to everyone else. They were all changing, becoming something more than human. The deadliest force on Earth was finally waking up.